be legislated. It existed.
Yeah, a natural law, whatever.
But I'm just saying, you agree that Federalists would not say, like, that's kind of, it's redundant, right?
Yeah.
The real solution, like, even though you're doing that, it's like it's really already exists. The cure is not, but why isn't it being recognized?
Because we have an oppressive state.
Well, it's been just wrong the entire time.
Yeah.
Says the Federalists.
Yeah.
Would Judge Warren agree with you on
I
that?
mean, I'm back in like the 1920s, dude. Like as far as my law takes over, I really think FDR.
There was a fourth. There's a fourth
destroyed our Constitution.
There's a Fourth Amendment at that time. FDR. Why? Go on.
Okay. I mean, that's where I basically say I'm out. Like,
you mean the
I'm not switching
Marshall Act
nines,
and
whatever,
shit
blah
like
blah
that?
blah. No, just yeah. I mean, the thing is,
was it during the Marshall Plan or whatever, right?
FDR was dead at the Marshall Plan.
Look, the economy, like in 1929, was unfathomably terrible. People are homeless, and they're just walking across, the United States looking for work. That's like the state of affairs. And so FDR basically says this isn't working, and we're just going to basically whip people into shape. We're going to pay them some, pointless dollars. Look at inflation at that level. And it did put people back to work, and they stabilized a sensible economy. That's what happened, but in doing that, the Constitution was stripped of all of its, protections for individuals because we had to put America to work. And that's how I see the Trump administration putting America to work again.
Wait, tell me how that went down. Tell me where it impedes upon the constitutional protections of citizens by putting Americans to work. Like, tell me what was sacrificed.
What are you talking about? What we need people to do things for the benefit of me. Its most elementary form is called slavery. So we liberated some people there. That's our history as humans. And now, in the 1930s, nope, we got to whip these people into shape again. Here's your dollars. Get to work. And they stripped us of constitutional rights in doing that.
Save the economy.
Yes,
and that's not a comment.
They're forcing people to work.
They have it all the time.
And there's a class of marijuana users, some would say, that are not going to work. We had an employment lawyer on tonight to stand up for corporate rights relative to this behavior.
Are we still going?
All that stuff. That's all coming.
Jim, are we still live?
Yeah, we're still going.
Yeah. That's what the Trump administration has in store. And I'm telling Jeff Sessions has announced it. Trump, in his State of the Union, has ignored it. We have the #1 dispensary chain in the United States, Sweet Leaf in Colorado, being shut down franchise-wise over selling 1 ounce too much to somebody within a time window. That seems like a disparate effect. I'd be arguing in court that's not equity. This is your licensing system. In California, they're shutting people, your home growers, down. It's happening. I don't know what to tell you. It's on the TV now. So there's 6 bills before Congress. There will probably be some action on it, I think, because it's an issue. We have a growing market. They're going to regulate it. Countries around the world are doing this. We're not an exception. And I think it's a little just disingenuous to think that we're all, doing the legalization thing, that's great, but we're signing up for a different form of cannabis consumption. That's all I'm saying. That's it. And that's what my article is going to be on.
That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, how does that? I don't even they're still knocking in our doors.
Well, this can't make sense.
Does everyone forgot about what we do all day?
Don't pretend like you've just come up with this idea.
I'm not.
I actually explained why our articles, mine and Jeff's, that we're writing, address this issue from 2 different, because it's much better than your proposed article. Let's just be honest.
Okay, I don't care.
Your article is supposed to be about the fall of humankind upon
just the
legalization.
fall of this licensing
go ahead.
system is ridiculous.
The legalization
This is the most
bad for the
expensive
economy.
licensing system I think
the world is going to come down, and if they legalize it, I'm a lawyer, I'm going to lose. Go.
Huh?
What is this? What's your article about? Go ahead.
The licensing system is terrible. It's just a simple.
Yeah, that's your article. You're saying like how
it's a barrier. It's
what
a
happened
massive
after
barrier
prohibition? What happened to the economy after?
That's what I want to go read.
What?
So I haven't, and that's why my article's me late because I have to go to Ann Arbor to read an out of circulation book from a 1933 economist describing what he sees in how alcohol prohibition impacted the general class of people. The industry itself. He's trying to basically write, this is what I'm seeing right now during this transformative time back then. I'm just saying it coincided with a Great Depression. It did. And I'm sorry.
The stock
Do
market
you understand?
crashed.
I understand, but do you understand that
No.
the I'm sorry, women, but like that whatever their group was called back then, there was like potentially a serious issue with a bunch of dudes drinking too much alcohol, and they were like whipping them into shape, and that's the temperance movement. I mean, and that's where you get this change, and so it goes.
Yeah,
And we
the
are
controller-
in my
controllers
opinion,
of the
in my
LGBT.
opinion, we are in that kind of
Churches.
era. We have a lot of excess wealth and all that stuff and all that nonsense. Like, it's an era of opulence.
You don't connect it enough. It's more like...
I'm trying to connect it because we have to advise people on what they should be doing.
Oh, you advise them what about the fucking... all right, listen.
What they should do in court.
Okay, but
Right? What else am I supposed to do?
right, but I mean,
Yeah. But that's happening, man. It's going to be a shit show, and it's really good for attorneys. Yeah, it's great.
well,
There's
first of all, there's other reasons.
600
wait,
attorneys in the
let's-
marijuana
first of all,
law
first of all,
section
just
now.
because listen,
Is
the
it?
coincidence is a
There's
coincidence.
600 attorneys in the marijuana
Yeah.
law section.
Yeah.
Michael,
800,
600.
800 maybe.
Yeah. Okay, that's my point.
What?
And the
I mean,
thing
there's
is,
and they're like pop-up specialists and pop-up
But they're
consultants
not
everywhere
like-
that I've never
Right,
heard of.
right,
That
right.
like, what the hell?
they're not like us, though.
No, they're not like you. And
Yeah.
I advise people because people call me all the time for I mean, there's like 5 names I give people who know
but
what's going
a lot
on.
of people might not be interested in what we are advising. There's other attorneys that they prefer, perhaps.
couldn't believe all the number of seminars that went.
No, we're talking about different things. Like the new lawyering is in the
The business aspect.
licensing, right? Which we do. Shirley
Right.
does. Not
Okay.
other lawyers that are known as marijuana lawyers may not. I know some don't. They don't want to do. But and then there are lawyers that have always been in licensing and they're badass in licensing.
Right.
There's some that do.
Some attorney generals have left the attorney general's office to be marijuana licensing attorneys.
Shut up. Are you kidding me? Well, there's 8 new prosecutors in the Attorney General's office for medical marijuana.
Right, and so there's a lot on the line in like who becomes an attorney general and how the marijuana industry is allowed to flourish here or die.
Well, they put a lot of money into the enforcement of
And
the,
they're not
it's the
donating.
Department of the Attorney General's office for the enforcement of.
Because of the penis.
You know, if you're going to do a regulated system, you got to make rules and regulations, and you got to have a executive branch that is empowering the oversight and execution of those enforcements of those regulations, as they call the like marijuana enforcement teams. They need money to prosecute that shit. That's what it means.
They should not be allowed to leave the Attorney General's office and move into the medical. Do you know how the Attorney General has tortured people? Tortured people, still is. You know how the Attorney General's office has tortured Michael Comorn? They shouldn't be allowed to go and do marijuana business if you worked there. How does that even make sense?
It's
Your
just the
security
way the
transporters are
system
going to be
works.
former police officers.
You know, I got to
From
say
the
something.
you said attorneys from the Attorney General office
I'll tell you
have
something.
left.
Yes, to become marijuana licensing attorneys.
How do you feel about that, Michael Comorn?
Well,
It's
There's
you know,
only
it's
so many.
it's
That's not
Turn over to the right side. They let the
it's a
guys
weird.
say-
Listen, it's not the same group of lawyers that I know and love.
Correct.
The council is that group, I would say, but there's a whole group of people that are political, maybe even adverse to my views of the world for whatever reason on other issues, and because of that, we just are going to disagree even on the marijuana. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers that don't want, they don't want, the more confusing, the better. They don't want the laws to change. They find themselves in what's going on right now is 'cause it's so, we're transitional, going through a transitional phase, and that's a way where people need lawyers in terms of the law and the implementation and these new things that are taking place. So, I had a friend people are not stupid. It's a whole new area, but it's really not in the sense that it involves two things: marijuana and the law. And the areas of the law that are necessary for the advising. Some have a more specific expertise that is required. But there's definitely an aspect of marijuana. You got to have, I think, a combination of both. That's my view on it. That's what we are. But anyways, it's not an advertisement. I wasn't trying to get.
I don't know.
But no, the ridiculousness still remains in the much more meaningful article than just the economy going sideways without any substance to back it up. It's the outrageousness of this probable cause and Schedule 1. But you can't lay any kind of causal link to
No,
the end
that's
of
going to go
prohibition.
away. I
and
like
you
that.
can't say that the court system itself had X amount of cases that funded this particular jail, that had this many judges paid for,
Oh no!
that had these many
no, our
probation
tax
officers,
dollars
that
just
when it's-
subsidize this system.
What?
Our tax dollars just subsidize the system.
At that time.
At this time, I think we're subsidized.
No, let's go back to the connection if you're going to try to make one, which is that prohibition
Oh, okay.
to the economy meant something. It somehow stable. It's stable, and then after prohibition, it was unstable. That's your argument.
I'm not saying that prohibition caused the.
Oh, but there you go.
I'm certainly not
All right.
saying that.
So
I'm just saying that
They just-
there were
no.
there were, certain cultures that existed at those time, and they progressed in a way, and I just see that there's parallels, and I'm not predicting anything. There's a
Are you
lot
su-
of parallels. I mean, a tremendous amount of parallels.
Well, hold on. This is not legitimate arguments. You can't say, that there's no causal effect, and then there's legitimate argument. I just looks like is there data that we can point to that
The
because like
increase-
for example, you're not the suggestion
Okay.
is certainly not this that because alcohol is now legal, that people are getting drunk and not working.
No, I think that there actually was I think some people would claim, certainly they claimed then, that there was a big drunkard problem.
Okay, well there you go.
No, like it was a thing. And,
Shame on them.
Right.
I agree. They should have kept it illegal. I mean, okay.
Prohibition worked. Like it drove it underground. It caused actually a large number of amount of the population to actually not drink. And then there's that. A lot of the churchy stuff came rearing its head that time too. I mean, the conference movement and all that stuff.
Same thing. That's the same
All
thing
that
at
stuff's
the
going on.
it's the Puritans were the same thing. The teetotalers, right?
Yeah.
Fire and brimstone and all that, like early, American colonial, Pennsylvania. I'm thinking right little.
It's unfair though to say because our country's always been divided though. Like it's always a contest for president, and there's always these deep factions and stuff. So that's just the rhetoric out of today. But then some of the rhetoric was the same because they were dealing with some of the same issues. I'm just saying. It's just.
I got a question for you, Schuyler. What would you say to the tens of thousands of mothers during Prohibition whose children died from drinking an unregulated product? Is that an example of Prohibition working?
The number of children who died?
Oh, yeah, there are kids that died from bathtub gin, for instance, makes you blind, that kind of thing, unregulated product. It was one of the number one reasons that mothers went ahead and, formed political organizations and, repealed alcohol prohibition because their kids were dying from an unregulated product, just like what's happening today. It's different, obviously, with the opioid crisis, but we had shit tons of unregulated product everywhere through the black market. And the fact that there were no cops, the untouchables were like the only straight cops. Everybody was corrupt during Prohibition. I also call that a failure of Prohibition. I don't think it worked very well. I mean, I hadn't considered your stance that, people stop drinking, but when you prohibit anything like that, it's...
What's going to create a black market?
No.
It creates a black market.
He may be in support of what
I'm
was
not
described as
saying
illegal market.
I'm not a prohibitionist. I'm saying though that prohibition, it works. Like it's a prescribable policy. Like if they implement it, it's going to have an effect, and it was shown to have worked. So much so that we had blood in the streets. Money. The richest people were the bootleggers. They funded the city. Like there's political change that was caused by it. That's how well prohibition works, in that it changed the political power. Okay, and here we are. The marijuana industry is only 20 billion. Okay, it's not actually very big at all. But the government's eventually going to deal with this issue. And when regulation, we are living in an unregulated market.